Hi class. Today we are moving on to sensory system, and if you go through your textbook, it talks about all the five senses. However, for testing purpose this semester, we will only focus on eye and ear. If you look at your study guide is specifically talking about the eye and ear. So we are not looking at any other senses except for vision and hearing. Okay. All right. So your eye is the dominant sensory structure. Vision is the most dominant sensory structure, or vision is the most dominant sense that works in human beings. We will start with looking at some external structures. This is an extra slide that I have added. You will not see this slide on your PowerPoint, and this is just to give you some background information. So eye is super delicate structure, very, very delicate. And the eyeball is protected by structures like the eyebrows, eyelids, eyelashes. The fancy term for eyelid is palpebra, singular, plural palpebrae. And the reason why we have these external structures is to prevent foreign objects from getting into the eye. Okay. Moving on to another slide again. You will not see this slide on your regular lecture PowerPoint. I just added this because I just thought it'll help you understand the eye better. Okay, so moving on to lacrimal apparatus. Lacrimal apparatus is made up of lacrimal gland and then lacrimal sac. So if you look at the picture on the top right hand side, you see a blue gland, and that is called the lacrimal gland. The lacrimal gland produces tear, and the tear comes down from the lacrimal gland, and it gets dispersed across the surface of the eye. If you follow the black arrows, you should be able to see which way tear comes out and the tear dispersing over the surface of the eye. The tear or the lacrimal fluid then enters the lacrimal canaliculi, which are these tiny ducts. Do you see these tiny ducts? These are called lacrimal canaliculi. They collect the tear or the lacrimal fluid and bring it to the lacrimal sac. The fluid from the lacrimal sac then drains through the nasolacrimal duct, which is this part, and ultimately reaches the nasal cavity. Inside the nasal cavity, the fluid gets mixed with mucus and dirt, and then it is transformed into a semi-solid material. If we are crying, do we have nasal discharge? Yes, we do, because if we are crying, or when we are crying, we produce more tear, which then passes through the lacrimal canaliculi into the lacrimal sac, finally ends up into the nasal cavity. All right. Next, I will draw out the eye as I do on the whiteboard. So it's a lot of information. It's a lot of hand-drawn information. And after that, we will move on to PowerPoint. All right, so this is what I usually draw on the whiteboard. We are looking into a sagittal section of an eyeball. Before I start talking about this diagram, I want you to understand that if you pull out an eyeball from any organism, from any animal, know that the eyeball remains protected by huge amount of fat. The reason being, it's a super delicate structure. Now we are looking into a sagittal section of the human eye, and from superficial to deep, we actually see three layers. Do you see the white layer? The white externalmost layer is called the fibrous tunic. Okay, so the outer layer is called fibrous tunic. So fibrous tunic is the outermost layer and it is divided into two parts. Anteriorly it has anteriorly it has cornea. So cornea is anterior part, and posteriorly we have sclera. Sclera is posterior. Okay, so do you see the bulging anterior part? The bulging anterior part is cornea. So let's label cornea here. And all the posterior part from here all the way to back till this point. Okay, this part is called the sclera. The sclera is also known as the white of the eye. The sclera is made up of dense, irregular connective tissue. Okay, what else do we need to know? Cornea, remember, is transparent. It's not white. Cornea is transparent and it's avascular. What do we mean by avascular? Cornea does not have blood supply, right? So we talked about the fibrous tunic, which is the outermost layer of the eyeball. The fibrous tunic has two parts. Anterior bulging part is called cornea, which is transparent and avascular. Posteriorly, or the posterior 5/6 part, is called sclera, which forms the white of the eye. The sclera is made up of dense, irregular connective tissue. All right, moving on to the next layer. Somehow I cannot change color. I don't know why. It's just not letting me change color. Anyway, somehow, okay, the layer deep to fibrous tunic is called the vascular tunic. So I'll label the fibrous tunic as number 1. Moving on to the next layer, which is vascular tunic. Vascular tunic. And the vascular tunic is this layer. I'll just put red dots here. This layer is the vascular tunic. As the name suggests, what do you think? What do you see here? Yes, you do see a lot of blood vessels in this layer. So vascular tunic has blood vessels. I want you to remember this. The vascular tunic has 3 parts. How many? 3. Good. Posteriorly, if I draw a line here and here, all the posterior part, like where I have drawn the dots, posteriorly we have the choroid. This is called choroid. This is C, not D. This is choroid. So vascular tunic, posteriorly we have choroid. Anteriorly there are 2 structures. I'll draw another lines here. Okay, this part is called ciliary body. This is called ciliary body, and ciliary body is made up of 2 structures. Those are ciliary muscles and ciliary processes. Okay, so then we have ciliary body, and anteriorly, very anteriorly, do you see this part? like the index finger. This is called the iris. So I'll just draw here. This is the iris. Iris. Therefore, let's review. The middle layer of the eye is called the vascular tunic. The vascular tunic is divided into three parts. Posteriorly, we have the choroid. Moving anteriorly, we have ciliary body, which is made up of ciliary muscles and ciliary processes. Very anteriorly, we have the iris. And remember, the iris is actually the colored part of your eye. So iris is the colored part of your eye. Okay? One thing that you must remember, the vascular tunic is highly vascularized, meaning it has lots and lots of blood vessels. All right? Okay, moving on to the innermost layer of the eye. I'll just start a new slide because it's very crowded right now. Okay, so right now I want you to focus on the green purple layer. Do you see the green layer and so together the green and the purple together make up one layer, and this is called the retina. That's the retina of the eye. The retina has two layers, as you see. The green one is called the outer pigmented layer. Outer pigmented layer. And the purple one is called the inner neural layer. Okay. So retina, the green area is the outer pigmented layer, and the purple one is the inner neural layer. I'm really sorry, class. I don't know why I cannot change color, but yeah, so everything is written in red. Okay, so superficially we have outer pigmented layer. Deep to that we have inner neural layer. Now one thing, if you look at the pigmented layer, know that the pigmented layer moves very anteriorly and it covers the ciliary body and part of the iris. Do you see the green layer covering the ciliary body and part of the iris? Good. However, if you notice the neural layer, see that the neural layer does not cover the ciliary body and part of the iris. And listen carefully, the junction of the outer pigmented layer and the inner neural layer, which is right here, at the junction, you see these lines. And the junction of the outer pigmented layer and inner neural layer is called ora serrata. What is that called? Ora serrata. Ora serrata. So how do you define ora serrata? Ora serrata is the junction between the outer pigmented layer and the inner neural layer of the retina of the eye. I'll stop here and then start with a new video.